What's up everybody? Mr. Ben Burns here for the future, and it's time to show your work. Today we're gonna learn how to present logos and identity projects that win. This episode is sponsored by Storyblocks. So what is this? This here is a logo presentation methodology honed by years of mistakes, School of Hard Knocks. Presenting logos is a science, not an art. So by learning this methodology, you'll be able to sell your logo designs easier to your prospective clients. If the logo is the product, the presentation is the packaging. And good packaging presents what's inside clearly and without question. Where this fits into the overall identity process is right after you've completed your first round of logo designs, the drafts, what you want to present to the client. This is the presentation that happens immediately after that. So before this, the client shouldn't have seen any designs for you and they're coming into this expecting big things. I can remember when I first started, and the first time I sent logos for approval to a client, it was in an email. Each logo was a JPEG file that was attached, each version individually, and I sent 15 options to the client. That was a huge mistake. And I think what I was really looking for is the client to provide some level of art direction. Quick note for all you guys who are sending your logo designs over email: stop it. Identity design jobs are best presented in person or over the phone. Stop treating your clients like designers and creative directors, because they're not. Okay, sometimes they are designers and creative directors, but you should still treat them like the design part, the creative direction part is your job, because that's what they hired you to do. But the real reason why this is important is to manage and control revisions. I know that you have all experienced this. Scope creep, revisions getting out of control, version 16, 17, 18. And the whole reason you want to present your logos beautifully the first time is to sell the client on a single concept. Before we get into the actual presentation and breaking that down, there's a few prerequisites that you need. The first is a solid discovery. The discovery phase is where you take all of the words and the ideas that the client has in their heads and organize and streamline this information into something that you can digest. The goal is to start the project on the same page. Number 2, take collaborative steps. From the outside looking in, this is how a logo design project looks like to a client. You start at point A, which is all the information that they have rattling around their head, and then you wind up at point B, which is a perfect logo. When in reality, we all know that the creative process looks kind of like this. Well, maybe like this, where you have point A, and then point B, and then point B V2, and then final, and then point C, and then you have final, and then you have final version 3. It's a long, windy road to get to a perfect identity. Now, Chris Dell calls it scaffolding. You're building towards the final product in a set of sequential steps. For me, it kind of winds around a little bit, so that's why I like this image. Now, one of the best things to do as a collaborative step is to do stylescapes. Stylescapes are like mood boards on crack. We've done many videos about them. Just search our channel for the word stylescape to find them. But if you have this, you have a broad compass direction in which to take the brand. So you're basing your decisions not just on words, but also on visuals. All right, the next requirement: incredible work. It should go without saying, guys, but you need to present your best work to the client. The 4th prereq, the right tools. So here at Blind, we use a combination of Photoshop to generate mock-ups of our logo designs, and then we present them using Keynote software. I know a few of you out there on Windows machines, but Keynote is amazing. You can buy it, I think. You can buy it for Windows, I'm not sure. Bottom line, use Keynote. It's way better than PowerPoint. A few of you have seen this new Adobe app out called Dimension. This is really promising. I am super excited about Dimension. I have no idea how to use it yet. Stay tuned for that tutorial as soon as I learn. All right, drumroll please. Let's build the presentation. Step 1, you want to start at the beginning. It seems common sense, but you'll be surprised how many designers just jump into throwing up their logos as soon as the meeting starts. Or worse, just sending off a PDF that has one logo per page and expecting the client to flip through it. You need to start at the beginning. And what I mean by that is to recap the reason why they want a new identity. One thing that I like to say is, if you guys can remember, our goal is to build a new visual identity that, and then you insert the pain point here. And if they don't have a pain point, you insert the objective here. Repositions you to gain more sales, increase your revenue, have your brand match your audience better. These are all examples of the reasons why people need a new identity. Now, this should have been fleshed out way before discovery in your early sales calls. So you should have this already somewhere in your notes. By reliving the pain point, you're putting that person back into the buying mentality that they were when they started the engagement. And this can be a really, really powerful thing for approvals. This is also a great place to just confirm that you had the goal right to begin with and to make sure nothing has changed. All right, step 2, recap the steps that you guys have taken together. I like to say something like, guys, before we dig into the work, let's take a step back and review the process to date. And then what I do is I show them a slide like this. These are all the important words that we drew out of a discovery session. And I walk them through and I say, look, you want to be bold, powerful, but bright and basic, colorful, current, inventive. You want to remind them of the place that they were in when they were giving you this inspiration to begin with. It's difficult for people to disagree with other people a lot. It's even more difficult for them to disagree with themselves. And so if you remind them of the decisions that they've made to date, like the words that they chose to describe the brand they want, it makes it really hard to refute the results of what you've drawn out here. So then we look for patterns, unvarnished, character, preserved, quality on the left, and then we have premium, hip, expressive on the right. And what we've drawn here is unvarnished beauty. Then after this point, we would typically just go over the stylescape that they chose, and then we would be caught up. Typically, you want to spend no more than 5 minutes on this. You just want to give everybody a palette cleanser, kind of like, hey, remember this, let's build on the steps that we've already taken. And that's why this is really important, because you want everybody in the room to be on the same page at every step during this meeting. All right, step 3, this is the big one. Display your work. So the ideal number of logo concepts to present is 3. One thing that I've found is that by presenting 3 options, you're allowing them to say no to one without saying yes to one right there in the room. So that means because they have 3, they can say, you know what, I'm not really feeling this one, but they still can choose between 2. So all this being said, the 3 logo options that you present need to be very closely related to each other because you've already set the direction in the stylescape. So as you present your work, you need to explain the thought behind each version. And this is really, really important. They did a study a while back about eBay sales. And they found that even something as simple as a computer sold for a much higher price point on eBay if the description included a story about it. I think the average was like $350 difference between one that was just the tech specs and then one was some elaborate story about where this computer has been and how much revenue is generated and how you're so attached to it. Having a story behind each piece lets you sell it easier. But one thing you need to ask yourself, is this story better told visually? Another idea is to look for ways that you can show the relationship between the piece that you designed and an element that you pulled for inspiration or in the stylescape. So in this circumstance, we needed to use a piece of the flame on the left, and we eventually turned it into the kind of nice elegant swoosh that you see on the right. And this slide was actually used in the presentation to the client to explain our process and how we arrived here. All right, so let's dig into the actual slides. Each of the 3 versions should be presented on the same sequence of slides. The first being just a simple isolated logo on white. So what this does is it allows the client to just look at the logo. We've seen fancy logo presentations that dove right into mockups, and it's difficult for a client to really absorb the visual information unless they just see it on a white background. We place the logo in the center of the page with a lot of negative space around it to really focus the eye on the actual logo. The second slide is a split screen, one color logo. This is really important because the goal here is to demonstrate how great your logo looks both on a dark background and a light background without any assistance from color. And hopefully this will show some thought when the client's looking at this like, I never thought about how the logo would look on a black background. The third slide is a collection of standard mockups. And what I mean by standard mockups is the typical mockups that you would expect from a logo presentation. A business card, stationery, maybe an envelope. These are things that people expect to see their logos on. Now, it's crucially important to draw elements from your discovery, from the stylescapes, to use in these mockups. Things like colored backgrounds and making sure the color of the shirt matches the new brand that you're building. There's nothing worse than presenting a logo on a mockup template that doesn't fit the brand. So you want to make sure that every template, every stock photo that you purchase is on brand every time. All right, slide number 4, small format mockups. It's pretty self-explanatory, guys. It's the logo done really small. So things like pens, pencils, pins, wax seals, cufflinks. You want to really get into the brand and try and figure out how they would use the logo in a small space. As we move through this, you'll find that the things that you present here, I want to say 7 times out of 10, you're going to wind up designing down the road. The client's going to see this, they're going to love it, they're going to ask you, hey, how much, we should do that, How much do you think it would take for you to design that?
$1 million.
So this is a great way to both demonstrate the brand and upsell other services. So since we did small format, the next up is large format. Now, large format is signage, wayfinding, interior graphics, billboards, things like that, things that really put the logo at scale. And so by putting their logo on the side of a building, that is such an ego boost for a small businessman. I mean, think about it. What if you walked into a room or walked into a meeting and somebody had your logo on the side of the building? It's gonna make you feel good, and that's the goal with this. So feel free to have fun with this. If you're rebranding a lawyer, think about ways, maybe you can put some gold foil on a windowsill, or if it's a coffee shop, maybe a hand-painted sign or something like that. Something where you're really conveying their brand in a physical space in large format. And then finally, you want to wrap up every single version with an isolated logo on white again. What this will do is it'll remind them that, hey, all this stuff it's all examples. None of this stuff has to be created or fulfilled or executed on. This is the logo. So it's kind of like a closure to the chapter that is this version. And quite simply, you just want to repeat for all other versions. So you should have 5 slides for 3 logo versions for a total of 15 slides. When you've completed all 15 slides, demonstrating all the versions of the logo design that you're presenting, you want to have one slide that compares all options. So we get this question all the time, and this is one of those, we never really wanted to put all the logos side by side. Every single time we do a logo presentation, the client asks for it. So typically we'll have it in the slide deck, maybe just hidden. I don't like to compare apples to apples like that, but have that slide in there just in case. So before we get to the final steps of the presentation, I thought that you guys would like to see how we create these logo mockups. Emily's over there working on some. Let's go check in with her. Emily.
Hi.
Hi, working on some mockups?
Yeah.
All right, so we're doing future stuff today, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So first step is actually to find stock images that work really well, right?
Yeah.
So you are on story blocks right now, and what are you focusing on?
We're gonna look for some stationery, like business cards, envelopes,
Okay.
stuff that's that's kind of like the normal for
Kind of like standard
yeah.
mockups. Okay, so that's that first slide of mockups that we talked about earlier. So when you're looking at stock photos, what are you looking for?
Usually really high res, and I'm pretty sure this website already gives out really high resolution images. And also, if it's stationary, some close-up images, that would be good if you can see the textures.
And you want stuff that like matches the brand that you're designing for, right?
Right.
So something like a rustic scene wouldn't work out really well for a really slick, polished brand like Apple, 9 times out of 10, right? So what's next?
We're gonna bring this into Photoshop, and we're gonna use some smart objects, so that way if you or the client changes their mind,
That never happens.
That never
right?
happens.
Nobody changes
Well,
their mind in this business.
Yeah, if they change their design, we can easily just replace them without doing all the hard work.
Very cool. And then this is Photoshop, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, well, I'm gonna let you get to work, and I will check back in with you shortly.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about this mock-up. So we're looking at an iPad, right?
Right, this is the original image.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, and you have a smart object in here?
Yeah.
So how does that work?
So this thing, if you double click into the smart objects, let's say this image is in a perspective, but if you double click into it, it's actually a rectangle that's not distorted.
Gotcha.
So you can put whatever images you want.
So we can quickly replace things and swap this out. So this can be a template that we use over and over and over again.
Right, and when you save it, it updates on the previous PSD file.
Very cool. That's how you're able to do things really quickly. Cool. All right. So it looks like these mock-ups are in great shape. Let's put them together in the slides and then send them my way.
Okay.
Cool?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Emily. I hope you guys thought that was interesting. You know, it really wasn't meant to be a full breakdown or tutorial on how we create these logo mockups, just kind of a glimpse or peek into our process. If you're interested, Emily's files are linked below. For free, you can see how she's constructed the smart objects and see how she's really put these things together. All right, let's get back to the logo presentation. So at this point, your logo presentation is complete, and you should have a slide that says thank you. You know, we love you, you're the best, you're awesome, however you want to say it. But now it's time to ask targeted questions. Here's some questions that we ask. This is my favorite. This is my favorite question of all time. And it always gets a laugh because right after you're done presenting your work, there's always that weird moment where nobody's really talking. They don't want to be too complimentary, but you know, they don't want to say anything negative. So it's kind of like this weird space that you're in. So to break that ice a little bit, I always ask, so did we miss the mark completely? It always gets a laugh for some reason. Typically it's a nervous laugh, but you know, whatever. But it's a great way to start things out on a positive note, because even if you bomb it, the client's gonna be like, no, yeah, this is a step forward, you know? So it's a great way to kick things off on a positive note. So another thing that we ask a lot is, we go back to discovery and we create user profiles, and we always name these people, and it's always something stupid, you know, like Joe Dirt. So at this point, I'll pull that name back in the mix. And I always ask, you know, hey, how do you think Joe Dirt would react to these logos? What that question is doing is it's taking the client out of, hey, what do I like? I like this, I like that, I don't like this. You're asking them to dig into the empathetic side and really put themselves in their user's shoes. And this is how you overcome that personal preference. Just a side note, every single one of the questions that you should ask, you need to be directing the client away from any kind of personal preference statement. So I try to stay away from open-ended questions like, what did you think? Did you like these? That's kind of danger zone area level questions. One good question to ask is, did we take a step in the right direction to solve, and then you remind them of the pain point. It ends up looking like, did we take a step in the right direction to help you grow your revenue in 2018? All right, here's another question that's great. Is there one direction that we can just cross off the board right now? As you present your work, there's always gonna be one option that they like the best and one option that they don't like at all or like the least. What you're asking them to do is to say, hey, I don't like this one, but you're not asking them to show the trump card of which is their favorite yet. All right, step 6, don't expect feedback. This is really key. The most feedback that we typically get is, I don't really like this one, I'm kind of leaning towards this. You always want to say, look, I know it's a lot to digest. I know you probably want to share it around and ask other people. Let's go ahead and give you some time. You always want to give your client the time that they need to digest what you just presented. So don't expect feedback and don't expect creative direction. We talked about that at the beginning of the episode, but it is key to not expect creative direction. The last step, set timelines and expectations. You never want to leave a meeting without next steps and expectations. It's crucial. I'm sure you guys have all seen this, where you give a client something to give you feedback on, and then they just go away and they kind of ghost. You always want to set the due date for feedback, whether that's a meeting or an email. Then it's thanks, and they're gonna give you hugs. Hopefully there's tears streaming down their face because you just knocked the project out of the park. And that's it. I hope you guys got value out of this. This was a huge question that I had when I first stepped into this business, is how do I present my work? So I'd love to see you guys share your wins, share your pitch decks, and share some of the insights that you've gained from this episode. That would mean a lot to me. This episode is sponsored by Storyblocks. Get studio quality stock for a fraction of the cost with Storyblocks. Download all of the stock video, images, and audio to your heart's desired from their member library, including HD footage, After Effects, templates, stock photography, motion backgrounds, and more. Plus, get exclusive discounts on millions of additional marketplace clips where you save 40% and the original artists take home 100% of the sale price. All of the content is royalty-free, so you can use it for both commercial and personal projects. New clips, video, audio are all added regularly, so there's always something fresh to download. Guess what, guys? We have an exclusive deal for the Futur crew. You get all 3 libraries for one low price. Enjoy unlimited access to videos, audio tracks, and images for only $149 for the whole year. Link in the description below.